Right. Good evening, everybody. It's time at 5 o'clock. The evacuation procedures, I will read it out due to the fact that we have a member of the public. A fire drill is not expected. So if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Once out of the building, please gather outside Yorkshire Bank on the opposite side of the road. Exit by the door which you enter the room or by a fire exit which are clearly indicated by the same green fire exit signs. If you need any assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known to the member of staff. Please also make sure your mobile phones are turned off or set to silent. Chair to advise the meeting if all or part of the meeting will be recorded for future broadcast. And it is being recorded. Okay? Apologies. Read them off for us, please.
I've got Councillor Tandy, substitute Councillor Margaret Pomfret, and Councillor Golby, and Lynn Price, the court
Okay. And Councillor Caroline Phillips.
Thank you. We all accept. Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Confirm the minutes of the January 11th. Okay, everybody happy?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest. We've got them recorded in. We've got them recorded in. If there's any further other than what's recorded, please let us know, or you can declare them as you go along if you remember something.
Nothing further.
Okay, thanks very much. And then we've got, okay, that's it then, haven't we? Then on to the public consultation.
Yeah, we've got Mr. Goss who'd like to speak on item 6.
On item 6.
And Councillor Conrad would like to speak on item 6 and item 8.
And item 8, okay. So, we'll turn to the pages and we'll get what page we're on. That's it. Right, can we have the officer give us the report, and then Mr. Goss, you can come in when the report is given, okay? Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry, I knew you, Councillor. Yeah, please.
Thank you. For those who are not aware, my name is Chris Egan. I'm the Programme Manager for the Capital Regeneration Project. I'd like to first give you thanks for letting me come again this year to give you an update on the progress of the Capital Regeneration Project. I think it's worth highlighting, hopefully you've had the opportunity to look at the report, and it's to highlight that as the development progresses, much more emphasis or focus is given on to the stewardship arrangements and estate management, and this is reflected in the progress report. In summary, at the start of the programme, a total of 474 properties were to be cleared and demolished. 240 of those were private at the time. At the moment, we have, as we move into the last acquisition phase and construction phases, we have 40 properties left to be purchased. Over the current 3 development phases, we've had over 800 properties constructed and completed, and we have detailed planning permission in place for a further 208 properties. At present, as part of the stewardship arrangements, Pride & Campbell is responsible for providing estate services to 394 properties, and the range of services that we have are detailed in the report. In addition to those 394 residential properties, we also have the Village Centre shops, which contains 8 retail units. The progress report provides an overview of these services. These are on page 5. But for me, I would also like to highlight that as part of the wider regeneration activity, Pinch, or Pride & Campbell, also supports a number of initiatives. These include a weekly job club, or Work Club, which is held every Thursday morning. You've got the Camp Hill Young People's Holiday Scheme, which over the last 12 months have taken or developed put on a range of day trips and overnight trips, which have supported 150 adults and just over 213 children, which took part last year. We also continue to support the Residents Forum, which is a group of residents which act as a link between the agencies on the Pride in Camp Hill board and the wider community. And we also have a very successful Camp Hill Computer Code Club, which has been designated a star club for the second year running. And in being designated a computer star club, what it does, we get people from all over the East and West Midlands come to see how we work on a voluntary basis with young people, teaching them computer coding. So much so that we've been credited with starting at least 7 clubs elsewhere outside of the area, based on people to see how we do at Camp Hill, which is one of the only code clubs outside of a school environment, run by volunteers. And we also have the bulky waste collections, which happens on a free to residents in the Camp Hill area on a once a month basis, which is one of our key objectives from many years ago, to reduce the level of fly tipping that we had on the estate, to the extent that we are managing fly tipping quite successfully. So with that, Chair, I'd like to say a quick overview of the report, but I'm more than happy to take any questions.
I've read, no, okay, I'll give you a second. There you go. Sorry,
Thank you.
Yes.
Right, I'm part of the Camp Hill Junior Football Club. I coach the under-10s and manage the team and outrun the club through the various committee activities. We work closely with the chess centre. We work really close with Camp Hill Primary School, and we're very grateful to Pride in Camp Hill for supporting us over the years to help us sustain the club. That's been absolutely crucial to us. It's so important because we play a major role in the community, both the old and the new community, in terms of bringing it together. So thanks to Chris Egan for that. However, we do have a major challenge for the next season, because we need to find an appropriate 11-a-side football pitch. The pitch that we use at Windmill Sports and Social Club is very poor, and the location is far from ideal. Camp Hill Primary School has a lot of ground, but we already use multiple pitches which crisscross each other, and that will not accommodate another pitch. So we have approached the council. I've spoken to Kevin Hollis and his staff about other options around the town, but they're extremely limited, and it seems that we've got Paul's Land as probably being the suggested venue. Now, of course, that defeats the object of getting the local community involved and engaged. And if we were to move to Paul's Land as a home ground, then I have no doubt that we would lose players from the teams. So it just gets to the final point, really, which says that if you look at all the open spaces on the estate, I'd like to know if Pride in Camp Hill and the council would please consider how a local pitch might be provided as part of the ongoing development of the estate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think previously Lovell Partnerships, who are the Phase 2 Village Centre development, as part of their community programme, did regrade part of the dingle to make it suitable to play football on. Now, I'm aware at the time that we didn't have an end user and we didn't have anybody to maintain that pitch thereafter, but I'm more than happy to talk to Kevin at NBBC and see if we can relook at those pitches there. Certainly, as Mr Goss says, we've got the land there. It's been graded previously, so it's a case of maintaining it to football pitch level. So I'm more than happy to revisit that. And as Mr Goss knows as well, it is coming to an end this year. But if there is any equipment needs for the football club, then we've got the community chest, which is a small grant programme to help with the goalposts and stuff. But I'll say that comes to an end this financial year, so I'll talk to the team quickly on that.
Okay, thank you.
There you are, that's a move forward for you to sit and talk to solve the problems. Let's hope everything comes. Please let us know how well you've gone on and how things have settled. and if you still need help, obviously we'll talk to our officers concerned, but it sounds like things can move forward. Yes,
Chair, could I
Chris?
just ask some questions, Mr.
Yes,
Ross?
yeah.
Can you tell me the age group of your teams again?
We've got under 8s, under 10s, under 12s, under 14s. And those age groups are growing from 1 team to 2 teams to 3 teams at those age
So,
levels as well.
of them groups, which ones would need changing rooms? It's right, I know a bit about it. I'm not going to say I'm a crazy football fan.
No,
I'm not.
no.
But I know that some of them groups need changing rooms and some don't.
Well, you've asked me something I don't know, Chris. I haven't got the change.
No, I'm not trying to catch you out or anything.
No,
I just
no,
would-
no.
Okay. Right,
It's
thanks.
something
for
I can check, you know, but yeah.
that. The way I think that would work is like 12s and 14s would probably need change rooms.
Yeah.
And 8s and 10s probably wouldn't.
Right.
It's just that Dingle you might not be able to get changing rooms fitted up there. That's why I was asking.
Okay.
But I'm a bit disappointed that our officers have only told you Paul's Lane.
Yes, it's a little far away.
Yeah.
So
We've got quite a lot of land, a lot of pitches around and
I
Borough.
should take that up.
Yeah.
Thanks for
Okay.
that.
So we'll,
You and
through our officer, we'll talk to Kevin Hollis and concerns to see what he's moving on that.
Right.
Yes,
Just going to highlight, Chris, that as part of the chess building developments, we did incorporate changing rooms for sports clubs on there to use the Dingle in the future. So they've got the capacity there to do it. I know the changing rooms are not being used at the moment, so.
I mean, that's right. I mean, way back, I think we did use them when we used to play on Stubbs's.
Yeah.
But of course, that's no longer used, so I don't know. Okay.
okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Councillor?
Thank you, Chair. I've been on this committee before and we have the annual report from Pride in Camp Hill, and one thing that's missing this year is a lot of detail on what's been built in the last year, sold in the last year. There's lots of detail about phase 1 and phase 2, but we're deep into halfway through, or phase 3 now. So I think the report needs a lot more detail on what's happening on phase 3 in terms of where we're going. And the 208, I know from sitting on the planning committee the year before, a lot of those won't be affordable housing. You know, we've got the viability problems, particularly with Galley Common coming on stream to build more market housing. Yeah, it makes it more and more difficult to actually progress the Parade in Camp Hill as 25% affordable. So I think we need a lot more on that area. Also out this last week has been a national survey on walking and cycling transport, and the Nuneaton and Bedworth has the 4th lowest amount of people who walk and cycle a week in the whole of England and Wales. Absolutely appalling. And one thing that Camp Hill Regeneration could have done was actually have lots of connectivity, and I think there was a master plan in 2001 with lots of connectivity. But obviously we've moved on 18 years now, and it's just making sure that we do get, as part of the finishing off, all that connectivity in there. You've got the lovely cycle lane across the park, but that then doesn't connect into routes into Nuneaton. And when we did phase 4, which is the one Midland Road at the bottom, the quarry, that lost its cycle bridge over the river, the canal into the top of Nuneaton. So there's all sorts of these issues, which, particularly for a poor area, not having the walking and cycling linked up is an absolute travesty. So I hope maybe we can look at that in finishing the project up, in terms of can we finish off all these links, because there was great ideas there, and I know I've seen the plans. The 2001 master plan had wonderful corridors of connectivity all the way through to where was the Nuneaton Park, Nuneaton Borough football ground originally, but a lot of that's been lost. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Yep, I'm more than happy to make those and take those points on board when we look at the last 2 phases of the construction, but also to ensure that where it's practical that we get those links developed and maintained.
Thank you. Another member of the anybody? Okay.
It's just
thank
me
you very-
then.
Sorry?
Just me then. Right, Chris, thanks for this. What I'm interested in is the properties along Edinburgh Road. I know there's not that many there that are still occupied, but I do know some of the residents that live there, and the quality of life is absolutely shocking. The boilers are not working, the rats are eating the wires, I don't need to go into all the rest of it. So how much longer are them residents going to live there? Because they've not only complained to me, I know they've gone to the MP as well.
I think one of the difficulties that we have, as I mentioned, we've got 40 properties left. At the moment, we're negotiating and doing evaluations on 22 of those 40. We're halfway through in terms of that. The process that we have is that we will value the property and then look then for suitable accommodation. In order to maintain the quality of life, we don't do a scattergun approach and value all the properties at once. So those who want to go or can go first, leaving a number of voids, which makes it more difficult to manage. So what we've been doing is going on a block by block basis and working at the pace of the residents being able to find the suitable alternative accommodation. And then in the past that's delayed the project, but it's allowed us to maintain to an extent the quality of life for those remaining. At the moment, we're working on the assumption that once we exchange the contract with Borough, it'll be up to 18 to 24 months before we clear the rest of the site.
Right, at the last scrutiny, you said about 18 months. So now it's 18 to 24 months.
No, that was on because I think last year we had, I think there was 56 to 70 properties left. So we have been continuing working on a block by block basis. We continued to that throughout the scheme. The finances available, what's held us up is literally finding suitable accommodation for residents moving out. So literally, we've got people with special needs. It delays the scheme. It delays us being able to rehouse them.
This worries me, this does, Chair, because this particular block of 4, there's only 2 of them that are occupied. The other 2 are the owners have lived somewhere else in another part of the country. So these 2 residents, they're living, well, they might as well be living on the streets, to be honest, because the rats they can hear the rats running in the walls, underneath the floors, above the ceilings, and they have been working with Pride in Camp Hill, but they're still there 12 months on after the last scrutiny. So I'd like to raise some concern over the way that some of these people are having to live because of the progress of acquiring their houses. So I'd just like to note that really.
Anybody else got comments with regard to that? No? Okay, thank you very much for your report. So we're now on to the museum, please.
Those of you who haven't met me before, I'm the Museum and Arts Officer and I lead the Museum Service for the Borough Council. Thank you for the opportunity to bring you some information about the Museum and Art Gallery and our performance last year. Partly because my throat won't hold up, I'm not going to read it all, and it would be very boring for you if I did. I have got some kind of visual aids for some of the things that are mentioned in the report, and I'll flag those up. I've outlined the visitor attendances in this report, and because I thought it was easier to talk about the year as a whole, 2017, they will be slightly different from the ones you see in other reports, which have been on the financial year. I hope that wasn't confusing, but I just thought it was easy if you could see the year as the year. Obviously, point 3, the Visitor England and Visitor Attraction Quality Scheme is something that the museum has aspired to be part of for some time. And in the lead up to our inspection last year by their special team, we did 3 mystery shopper experiences through West Midlands NDO to perfect the welcome that we were giving to our visitors. And that whole process looks at the whole of the museum, so it includes the cafe, even though that's externally run. Everything had to be up to standard. And I've brought the certificate along today that we will be re-inspected in 2 years, so we have to keep our game up, if you like, in order to achieve that. And I included an extract from the report they did. The report is quite extensive, and I can forward it to anybody who wants to see it. On the whole, they were very complimentary, particularly about our resources that we provide for families and children, and that they felt that the visit was made much better by our staff, that they were really good at providing that welcome. Last year was our centenary year. The building, it was 100 years since the building had opened, and we did some minor events to mark that occasion. I talk here about the use of Scratch. We'd been part of a Battersea Arts Centre project, which introduced the idea of kind of testing and experimenting with our audiences to make things better. We've done some pilot projects, and we feel that we can see the benefits and our visitors can see the benefits, so we're committed to adopting that as a way of working as we move forward. I mentioned the exhibitions, and what I neglected to put in the report was that we received 976 exhibition comments last year, and 94.8% of those were positive about the exhibitions that we put on. 3.5% were negative, and the others were sort of random or kind of neutral, but obviously children like to play with comments books. That reflects why there's this gap in the percentages. As part of our ongoing commitment to working with children and adults, and particularly to get them to experience the museum together and provide learning and fun for them together, we had two initiatives last year. One was the Tootles tour, and this really came about because for the first time we had Wi-Fi in the building which we could exploit and make use of. And so Tootles, who was our founder's dog, takes the children around the museum with lots of barking and lots of bad behaviour by Tootles, I should say, rather than the children. And that's proved to be very popular. And as a follow-up to that, we also did the Museum Explorers Pack, which I brought over here. We received a Sure Start grant for creating a school readiness resource, the idea of getting preschoolers ready for school. And this is something we did through the Scratch project. So we had in mind there would be a pack and there would be a book which would allow the children to explore the museum with their mum, their dad, granny or granddad or whatever, and allow them to develop some of the skills they need for school. We did this project entirely through the children's centres. They're involved in all the testing. And we went on a complete journey with them in terms of what held the children's attention, what worked for them, what didn't work. Clearly, even though we have kind of things at lower levels, for a very tiny person, they're quite often not accessible. So we did lots of testing with various binoculars to find the right binoculars and things. And it's fair to say that the resource is a lot stronger because of the amount of work we did with all those lovely volunteers to get it exactly right. And I think it shows how well it's working, because the day after we launched it, we had children in using it, and we're continuing to have several children in a week using it. The final part of the project is to provide a film that will be on Facebook and which will be shared, which will show children using this. There's a last bit of marketing for that. What's my place now? Just to flag up, obviously we've continued with our community case project, which I think you'll probably have heard about before. We work with 4 groups and sometimes individuals, and it gives them a voice and a place within the museum to talk about or to show the things that they're interested in. Often the groups will bring their own materials in, but I think most of the groups last year chose to delve into our collections and find objects that were meaningful to them. And in some cases, we work with the Mental Health Drop-In Centre, Nuneaton Young Carers, Nuneaton Memories, and one of our volunteers. We've got the Nuneaton Young Carers exhibition in at the moment, but we're just working with Galley Common, a group from there, and they're now working on it, and that will be launched sometime in April for the next one. We've had ongoing projects with helping the Bedworth Cricket Club work towards how they might produce something for their new... I can't think of the word. Pavilion, that's the right word, thank you. And we've been working with the Festival of Arts to support their plans to celebrate their 70th birthday this year, and their exhibition that we've worked on them with will actually launch at the museum a week on Saturday. I popped in a bit about income generation, which is not something I've put in a report like this before, but I just wanted to highlight the fact that it is something that we're aware of, and I really wanted to signal the amazing amount of, or the rise in donations that we get from our visitors. it certainly helps us in the council to operate the service, and I think it shows that they value the services that they're getting. So we're continuing to work on that, and I think we've had about £1,700 this financial year so far, so I would expect to do quite well this year. And we're also concentrating a bit more on our shop than we have done in the past. We have a target of £2,100 each year, and we've actually made that target for our financial year at this point, so I think that shows the kind of effort that we've put in. I just wanted to flag up, there was has been a bit of a restructure as a result of the budget reductions and to refocus the service. Coming out of VACWAS and that experience of improving our welcome, and mindful of the demographics of the communities that we work with, we really wanted to extend beyond just being really good at welcoming, but welcoming all kinds of people with all kinds of issues, physical disabilities, mental disabilities and things. And by putting the museum outreach officer into the learning and access manager role and him managing the front of house, we're hoping to really take the learning we've learnt from working with various outreach groups and bring that into our front of house so that everybody can feel welcome and cared for by the service in the longer term. The budget reductions have meant the curator role has been reduced to 25 hours. And clearly that will see some reduction in the project work ahead. The project work in the year ahead, we'll have to see how that pans out. I've put a statement in about arts development because I think that has been particularly requested. And just to flag up on the future work, I referred to a project, and I couldn't say much about it because it was embargoed, but the embargo has been released this week. We've been selected as one of 100 communities who will take part in a national campaign to mark the fight for suffrage by women in 2018. Our participants will create a banner working with an artist, and they will then process that banner alongside those other groups in London on the 10th of June in 2018. It was a competitive process to be selected for that, so we've done really well. And we're already recruiting some of the women that will be involved in that project. We're recruiting people from across the borough of different ages and things. And they will produce the borough in sort of March, April, May, ready to take it to London. And then we will look for an opportunity to share that banner more locally after that event. And just to flag up, I mentioned marketing and Instagram and us exploring using Instagram in the future. To give some context to that, we do use Facebook quite a lot, but we're aware that that appeals maybe to a mature audience. One of the reasons or our motivations in using Instagram, apart from the fact that it's a very visual medium, is that 73% of 16 to 25-year-olds apparently open Instagram at least 3 times a day, and we want to be some of the things that they're looking at. So that's the report. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Yes.
First of all, congratulations on being selected to produce one of those banners. Such an important milestone in British history. It's great that Nuneaton's going to be taking part there, and I hope we do make something of that in the borough as well. That would be great. A couple of things. You touched, and just to pick up on your comment at the end there about social media and engaging with younger people, it doesn't feel like the museum has historically reached out to A-level history students, GCSE history students. It's been the younger ones, and there's a lot of them. There'll be some interesting artefacts, particularly given Nuneaton's location and what the syllabus is for A-level, particularly history students, that might be quite useful there. So targeting that, having a conversation with whoever's leading on history at the local schools, Tex, kind of Keggs, Hine Lane, Thomas More, whatever, might be profitable, might be well worthwhile. The 2 main points I wanted to raise on page 22, 11.2 and 11.3. We could talk at length about historically the missed opportunities to capitalise on George Eliot in the town, and how a lot of the buildings were allowed to be demolished or pulled down or converted into steakhouses or whatever. And, that's past. What is important is to recognise just what potential there is in George Eliot. for Nuneaton and Bedworth and for the area, and to do more to capitalise on that economically and to promote the borough. And you only have to look at some very small isolated places up in the Lake District to see what Beatrix Potter does and brings in that kind of foreign money, and then Stratford, you know, for the VAR and all the rest of it. So I'd like to think that more will be done, and I'd like some kind of encouragement in my thinking from you about how we're going to capitalise on the bicentenary, and maybe tie that in with the stuff that Coventry's talking about right now, that also links in with their City of Culture. Can you just try and draw those together?
To some degree, the museum's not alone in this anymore. The destination assessment that was done for the council recognised the importance of George Eliot, and there is an action plan, and that was linked up to the council through the economic development strategy. So there's meetings upcoming where it's the economic development people, myself and all sorts of people coming together to talk about the kind of council response and actually how we engage not just the public sector but the private sector in moving forward. Separately as a museum, we're in conversations with Nuneaton Library, with Coventry Culture and with Coventry Archives about making a bid related to researching and making our collections jointly more accessible to make sure that visits are passed between us far more effectively. And we believe that being partners with Coventry in a bid at this point will be advantageous when it comes to 2021, because we will have kind of done all the work.
Can I ask, and it was years ago, there was a really good display down there that I went to, and a lot of people I knew went to, that had got George Eliot's dresses and a whole bunch of artefacts from that time in the museum.
Yes, we still have a permanent gallery related to George Eliot.
But there was a lot more, I don't know whether stuff had been borrowed in or replicas had been produced. This was some years ago, but it was much more than normal.
We did change the gallery as a result of some consultation, some work with an artist a few years ago. Partly because the gallery had to change anyway, because the Herbert Art Gallery and Museum had their new development and they took the writing desk back and a couple of other larger artefacts at that point. And also fundamentally, when we were doing research, although the gallery was very full and there was quite a lot of text in it, people were leaving the gallery not knowing George Eliot was a woman and a writer. So fundamentally, whilst there was a lot of stuff in there, we weren't getting the right messages through. So we have altered the gallery, and there was another alteration, there was a takeover day with children. I don't know whether that was 2015, 2016. And we are getting more people leaving the gallery knowing she was a writer and she was a woman, which is good. What we will be taking the opportunity to do in 2019 next year is to do an additional temporary exhibition on Eliot. And we're looking at perhaps some more unexpected information about her life that people perhaps don't know, because our research has shown that people are very much interested in her life rather than the books. So most people don't know that she took up badminton in the last couple of years of her life. They don't associate her with physical exercise necessarily. They also don't know that she mixed with a lot of medical and scientific people, and she was actually one of the first people to have ether, to have her dentistry work and things, so she was right at the cutting edge in things. And that's where we can start to make connections with our economic development team in talking about Eliot exporting her genius, if you like, to the world, but also being part of innovation, and that being something that's shared with our local companies and with our local industries. So we've certainly got an exhibition in that year. The museum's also been sitting kind of informally on a panel with the George Eliot Fellowship and with other players who are interested in George Eliot, and a programme is emerging of events for that year, starting at International Women's Day and ending in November, December time. I know that the Allied Literary Alliance of Great Britain is meant to be coming for a visit in May, which will overlap with our exhibition and things. So that programme is still emerging, and there is still the challenge of finding additional funds, obviously, from other people to support that. But that process is ongoing, and the George Eliot Fellowship have bought a website with a domain name, and we'll be putting that live fairly soon to start to publicise those sort of events and things that they're planning.
And will they consult with you, and will you cross-advertise each other's stuff?
That's the purpose of
Could
these
there be a George
meetings.
Eliot Trail or something?
There's the purpose of the meeting. We're looking to see, because there was actually some really good work done for the Scenes of Clerical Life project that was 2007, where trails and things were created, and we're trying to see what's the best way, now that technology's moved on, for those to be done, and how we support kind of the publishing of those. I mean, interestingly, I think interest is now already kind of emerging at a national level. We'd been talking to the British Librarian about their plans, but I got contacted by the BBC Online for details and photographs of our displays today, because they wanted to create a page about how you could visit and where you could visit associated with George Eliot. So I think it's fair to say that the national picture is also coming in. So that's already been responded to today. So hopefully that also helps to bring footfall into the borough.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I know it's still very early days, but has the museum got any plans to be involved with the Coventry City of Culture, or have any thoughts on where that might go?
Yeah, I mean, we're at the very early stages, and I was talking with somebody yesterday about this. There is an opportunity for Nuneaton and Bedworth as a whole to suggest programming ideas for 2021. My understanding is that Coventry are expecting £10 million worth of additional tourism visit in that year. So it is about programming something very special. One of the reasons we're working closely with Culture Coventry, who operate the Herbert Art Gallery Museum, is that we can be complementary in our programming and not competitive. And that's why we're looking at working together on 2019, so that we kind of build up that working relationship and then we can best move forward. I've been to a couple of 2021 events, and I think it's fair to say that they are more than overwhelmed with people wanting to speak to them right now. So I think there's a right time for us to send programming ideas. Their programming person that they're appointing won't be until autumn, so we have some time as an area and as an authority and as a museum to consider what we want to contribute, and to put that forward at that time. I think even if we don't become formally part of the programme, the fact that there's going to be that much for 20 minutes up the road, it's about getting our marketing and our branding right, isn't it, and our online presence right for that moment, so that even if we're not in the official programme, we become somewhere that people come for that afternoon. But I think there's opportunities whether we're formally involved or not.
Chris?
Well, first of all, congratulations on the work that you've done. It's good to see that you're doing everything, and it's also good to be able to see the museum from the ring road now. Really pleased with that.
Yes.
It took a few years to get there, but
Yes,
we finally
it did,
got
didn't
there.
it?
And to be fair, there's been a lot of good comments on it. And on your Facebook thing, I always reshare it and everything, so that is good. I was wondering, well, I was speaking to one of your staff actually, because I was stepped in for the mayor one day, and I was talking about tours.
Yes.
There was went to Leamington and done a tour around the park, and a really enthusiastic guy telling us all about the park, how it was made and why and all the rest of it. And he did explain that to do tours around Nuneaton and Bedworth, it would be difficult because you need transport really to go around and explain. Touching on multiple is the different places that George Eliot went to, visited, wrote about. It would take a minibus really to take them around. But he did say that he would probably think about doing some sort of tours around where you could walk and explain about George Eliot. I was just wondering if you'd had any more thoughts on that.
Yeah, I haven't progressed that anymore. I mean, the maps that we did that I mentioned, one of those is a George Eliot one, and that highlights the buildings, particularly within Nuneaton, that are still, and Bedworth, that are still extant and that can give you a flavour. And I don't know at the moment, the George Eliot Fellowship have traditionally done tours, and I don't know what their specific plans are for that year. I think there's scope for us to do something, the funding that we're going for might give us some opportunities to do some visitor engagement around that. And I think it would actually be perhaps more interesting if we get to a project where it's local people taking them around, because we've discovered a lot of people who are passionate about George Eliot, and maybe it will speak to people better if we facilitate them creating the tours and deliver those tours in that year. Because then we're skilling people up, which is another thing that needs to happen.
It just made me a bit envious, really, that I had to go to Leamington and go around their park and the rest of it, and then I can't find invite people back to here.
Yeah, we've done some, when we launched the maps, we did a couple of very small tours, one for the Love one and one for the Nuneaton map, and they did work quite well. I think it's finding the time to work on it,
Yeah,
if I'm honest.
especially when the grants have been cut and your officer time has been cut and things like that.
We had aspirations to do a Second World War guided tour, and we did quite a lot of work on that, so that people could see the actual impact of the bombing and kind of really understand how it changed the town and things. But I think there is a moment certainly in 2019 for us to kind of particularly focus on trying to sort something out for us.
The last one I was thinking on is, I know I asked slightly about it at the last time we came, was lottery funding, and if there's any move on that, on doing any more lottery funding. I know, again, I know it's officer time and things.
No, we have been thinking about that, and we're just about to prepare a single member decision to kind of see whether we can move forward, and there is an appetite to move a stage 1 bid forward for the museum. I'm just doing some last bits of research. We'd got so far and thought what we were going to do, but the lottery's recent announcement that they're suspending some of their programmes because they're running out of money, and their guidance has slightly changed, so the direction we thought we were going into might have slightly shifted because of the funders. But the plan is that I'll still do that work this financial year and produce a single member decision. Maybe might have to wait till after the elections now, I guess, but there is a serious intention to try and move this forward now, because we recognise that the permanent galleries need a refresh and perhaps something beyond what we normally do for 25 quid and sticky back plastic, and because we recognise that we want to look at the long-term resilience of the building, so we would like to give some thought to things like ground source heating and that kind of thing, because I can only see electricity and gas costs going up, so anything we can do to help make the museum more sustainable by addressing those things is obviously got to be advantageous. So we're not just looking at kind of the interpretation, if you like, although that's obviously very important, but it's those other factors that we need to bear in mind if we want the museum to be here for the century.
Yeah. Oh, okay, thank you.
Any other members? Anybody? No. Thank you for your excellent report. Congratulations, whatever we're doing. There was comments were made at the early stages of life in the museum. I'm going to have to say yes. Because I was ignoring the push-yard. And it's the museum has, for over the years, even through the trying times with the children and the schools and everything, we seem to manage to keep our head above water, and they've not gone crazily over expenditures where you look at it and say, probably we've got to stop that, whatever. I think they've managed it absolutely brilliantly over there. Do a fabulous job with the kids and that, and just keep it going with what we have and what we're doing. We just rely on good souls for doing the work for us, and all the achievement there. Just say thank you for us. So thank you for the report. And Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. So, and the next one we have report is the Civic Hall. All yours, Tim.
Thank you, Chair. As is customary at this time of year, I'm invited along to give an update, and I do have some additional pieces of financial information which, with your agreement, Chair, I'd like to circulate. Our accountant was away on holiday until Monday, so she has tabulated all the rest of this information for you, which is hot off the press, so to speak. Thank you very much indeed, one of each, if you wouldn't mind. I appreciate that the depth of the report grows annually, with requests from members for additional artistic and financial information about the Civic Hall. Appendix 1, as is usual, is an update on the business improvement plan, which was adopted in 2012 and is reaffirmed on an annual basis. And then Appendix 2 gives direct correlation to developments within the audience development plan, which takes us through everything from the number of council promoted shows compared to council promoted shows, to the breakdown of art form by ticket sale, by earned income, and also at the back of this year's Appendix 2 we do have the outline from the audience patron survey, which gives us a good grounding as to where we should be going in the financial year 18-19. As I'm sure you'll be aware, and we haven't alluded a great deal to it in the report because consultations are still ongoing in relation to the savings that need to be made in the 18-19 financial year, but I would like to assure members and those representatives attending the meeting this evening that once the consultation is complete, then a further report will be submitted for comment and observation. It is a fairly detailed report, Chair, and as with Catherine, I would hate to read through 53 pages, but there is a lot of information there. I'd also like to pick up on a couple of the points that have already been made around the table. That 2018 is a good year for the Civic Hall in terms of involvement with the Festival of Arts, with their anniversary celebrations, and I'm very pleased to say that with the intervention of Catherine, the Festival of Arts has managed to secure funding to hold their piano competition at the Civic Hall in Bedworth this year, and that will be followed on the following day by their dance competition, and I've also been invited along to the launch, which Catherine has already alluded to. Also this year we have the 100-year anniversary of the end of World War I, and we've been very fortunate enough to secure the Royal Marines Association band to celebrate that, and there will also be a concert later in the year approaching Remembrance Sunday, because you will be aware, I'm sure, Chair, that Armistice Day and Remembrance Day fall on the same day this year, and as custodians of Remembrance, then the Armistice Day Committee will not be running a parade this year, but they are looking at putting on a special concert at the Civic Hall in association with ourselves. 2019 we then have the George Eliot celebrations, which again with Catherine will hopefully be involved with. And then, as already been mentioned, the City of Culture 2021, Catherine and I have been to a number of presentations and meetings, and again we are hoping that our positive working relationship with the Belgrade Theatre in particular will continue during that period, and indeed the lead up to 2021, where clashes of programme which have historically happened many moons ago, there is a lot more consultation now, and we're making sure that each of us is complementing what each of us is doing. Over and above that, Chair, it would probably be best, I think, to open the report up for comments and questions, and I will do my utmost to provide any additional information that isn't in the report.
Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I've always taken a big interest in Civic Hall. As you can see from the new paperwork, it's around £700,000 a year on our accounts. And I'm actually a massive fan of arts and stuff. So what annoys me is not how much it costs, but how little it's used for how much it's cost, which is why year after year I keep on about the internet and getting more tickets sold. Because per person going to a show, the cost must be astronomical. And if you can get twice the number of people going to the show, the running costs of the Civic Hall don't double, it's your income doubles. So I really think we need to work on things like the audience development plans, which have been a bit pushed on the side. Also, I think the bistro, very sad if it's going to just close. In the museum, we have franchised out the cafe there. Yeah, so it's not the council that does all the running of it, it is a private enterprise. And we really need the food and the possibly combined with the drink at the Civic Hall, the bar, run commercially, because it just takes a whole lot of stuff away from being our problem and lets someone be more entrepreneurial and not have the cost overheads associated with the council. And it is really useful to get people into something like the Civic Hall to drink and to eat, even when there's not a show on, because then they see the TV screen saying the panto's coming or the wrestling's coming. And one particular thing I'm very sad about is apparently the Folk Festival, which was a nationally significant event, which is held every year at Civic Hall over 3 days. That won't be as big or might not even run in future. So it'd be useful to find out what's going on with that and why we aren't supporting it or what the problems are. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I can answer that, Chair. As I'm sure you'll be aware, Councillor Gondarka, the Folk Festival does receive considerable funding from the Borough Council. There is no charge for the use of the facility over the 3 days, from the Friday evening to the Sunday morning. The council has also supported the Folk Festival since the weekends clash with the annual pantomime, and so £1,000 subsidy has also been provided for the last 3 years, and that finishes in 2017. The decision to reduce the festival from 3 days down to a day and a half or 2 days, I'm awaiting a report from the financial outturn from Malcolm Gurnham and his team. So even though it was announced at the festival last year that the festival would be reducing in size, they were quite surprised by the amount of advance ticket sales last year, and until their finances are concluded, I'm not in a position to confirm whether or not they are going to reduce the festival in terms of day terms or not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I don't propose to pick out all of the points that struck me out of this lengthy report, and it is a good detailed report, and thank you for that, and also for the latest updates. We can't ask any more than that in terms of information, but I think there's some wider principles here. I mean, you know, that is, we're probably hamstringing the Civic Hall and not allowing enough private provider initiative to come in and take over things like catering and bar work and all the rest of it. It's been too restrictive, the kind of conversations that have taken place to date. And yet the borough isn't throwing in the resources and the time to make the thing a real success on its own. And that's not surprising, because local authorities aren't great at running businesses, and ours doesn't have a particularly good track record in that that marks it out from any other local authority. So, I mean, you've only got to look to illustrate the point. Page 57, you look at how how people actually book, and in person is half of the bookings, and then telephone's 42%, and then the internet's 10%. It's just, you know, if this was a commercial entity, they would be getting much larger numbers in, because they'd be making the investment to reach out more, I think. And we can see that in the numbers on page 37. You know, you've got the admissions down again. That's a long-term decline, down to less than half what it used to be a few years ago. And that's on the stuff that the council promotes. And then for the private stuff, admissions were down, yeah, quite substantially last year on the year before. So I can see that people are working very hard there, and whenever I go in, it's a pretty good experience. It's just, I think, to the speaker's point, it's an experience that should be shared by an awful lot more people. And I think the way that that's going to happen, that we're going to make the Civic Hall a really stunning success, is to get far more private commercial involvement in there to effectively run that and really run it as a commercial entity. And so if you go through the risks register that's in there and just look at the points that are in red, they're talking about reducing the size of the kitchen, but there isn't the cost of the money available to do that. Well, actually, why would you do that? Why wouldn't you just get a commercial entity in that will utilise that really good kitchen resource there? Why spend money on degrading the facilities that are in the place just to save a few pennies? Much better to get somebody in who will make full use of that and generate a reasonable return from it. So yeah, there's quite a number of red items that are circled in this risk register. A few things that are marked as green that should be red, because if we look at number 6, it says that, oh well, you know, there was one entity that was hiring out that room at 15,000, or that floor at 15,000 a year. They finished in 2015. Somebody else has taken over it. I believe a firm of travel agents. It doesn't say how much they're paying, and that's about to come to an end in a few weeks. And it doesn't say what's going to carry on from there. So I think there's a whole bunch of lost opportunities that maybe getting some more commercial involvement would help us overcome. And instead of being a very substantial drain on the taxpayers of the borough, it could be break even or even make a contribution. Thank you, Chair.
Chair, if I could comment back on that. I take on board what the member has highlighted, but as you'll see from the 16-17 end of year costings, we did actually come in nearly £57,000 under budget in the 2016-17 financial year, and in the 17-18 financial year, at the present time, as of December, the minimum that will come in underspent on budget is in the region of £30,000 to £31,000. You'll also be aware that in the Cabinet report of the 22nd of November, the council promoted shows will be reduced by 10. Private hirers are being actively encouraged to book more sessions at the Civic Hall, which we have increased year on year. That again reduces the financial risk to the venue. In terms of the operational savings that were discussed at the Cabinet meeting on the 22nd of November, as officers we will be duty bound to carry out those savings as directed by Cabinet, and as soon as those final implementations are decided upon and the consultation process concludes in relation to the bistro, then we'll have a clearer direction as to where we'll be going with those. But I would stand by the case that I do not think, as having been the Civic Hall manager now since 2008, I think there have only been 2 years since 2012 where we've actually come in over budget. One of those was the 40th anniversary, and there was a corporate decision there taken to bring in large-scale acts over the 12-month period. And then the following year, I believe 14-15, was when all the council's assets were revalued, and then we were hit with a £97,000.
And that's completely understandable, Tim. And,
Yeah.
and to be clear, I don't think anyone is criticising you and the management. Given the restrictions that are placed on you in the budget, you're saying, you know, we're not exceeding our budget other than these exceptional items. In fact, we're coming in, you know, we'll be 30,000 under budget this year. You're not being criticised in any way. I'm not hearing from anyone else, certainly not from me for that. What I'm saying is that's down in the detail. The big picture is that, you know, local authorities need to look at these assets and say who can run them best. There's some enormous businesses in this country who, on a global stage, are absolutely top-notch at running venues, and you've only got to look at Compass Group and whatever, and they do this for so many local authority entities. We, you know, it now has come the time, I think, to put aside any kind of political considerations and say what's best for making the best of this resource and costing the taxpayers of the borough the least amount of money.
Now let's make it clear. Everybody in the committee has freedom to speak and feel what they feel. I just think I've just had a political budget speech. Let me make it absolutely clear as far as we're concerned, certainly my 35 years on this council. We've always done things and stood by the Civic Hall, the museum, the art centres and everything. We have backed the art centres for the people of this borough for years and years and years. And we stood and we made them pay. You've just heard reports from you here, you've heard them here. The Civic Hall has had various difficulties there, but we have kept it in the public domain for the public people. When you talk to people out there, around there, the arts and the Civic Hall, they're always very close to the hearts, and we've done that. And what you don't have to do every 5 minutes with that, and the best of it is, I wonder whose finances that's taken away from this authority to make it a damned hard side harder to run the facilities we have. If we've got more budget and whatever coming, maybe we could run the arts and spend more on arts for the people of this borough. You've just heard the museum where the children and the people going out are absolutely committed and want to be part of it. Now the answer to me is not that we've never done it. We've always looked after things for the public. I think the Civic Hall people, managers and their team are working extremely hard to make sure that it stays with the public and our people are happy to do and support whatever. Maybe one day it gets to the stage, I shan't be here, just whatever. But I'm been very, very proud to be part of the arts, Civic Hall and Museum over 35 years, and the answer not always just to go out to private sector. That's not our policy, that's not our philosophy, so if you feel that's a bit of a political speech, well, so be it. Anybody else? Yes, Chris. Sorry, yes, see you.
Just a couple of things really, Tim.
Yes, Chris.
Again, it's not criticism, but as you know, you've seen me over there quite a bit just lately, and after sitting through a show for a couple of hours or something, the first thing I want to do, to be honest, when I get out, is have a drink. And I've always noticed that the bar is always closed, so you've already got a captive audience that wants to come out. I'm not saying all of them want to drink, but they're the only place they can go to get a drink is in Bedworth Town Centre, and I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but surely to extend the bar hours a little bit to 9 or 10 or whatever when the show's on would be only a good thing for the Civic Hall. That's my opinion. And the only other thing I'd like to mention is on the advertising. I know I've mentioned it past couple of years before, is we have got places like Airfield Road, multi-storey, the two on Coton Road and the Ringway by the museum where you can advertise shows. But people in Nuneaton that live in Nuneaton and visit Nuneaton, because I get quite a lot of visitors, still don't know of all the good shows like the Aladdin, Mother Goose and everything else that's going on at Bedworth Civic Hall. And I just think it's a missed opportunity, because there's thousands of people coming into that bus station and parking there, and I just think it's a really missed opportunity that, like I say, it's not a criticism, I just think it's a missed opportunity.
No, that's fine, I'll take that on board, thank you.
Just before we move, oh sorry, go on. Yes, sorry.
Thank you, Chair.
My apologies.
Nuneaton has a lot of Indian, Pakistani, Nepalese, Chinese people living here, and the shows seem very English. Has there been any approach to other community leaders? You know, it's sort of Chinese New Year in February. Are there any shows held that would attract?
Yeah.
However,
Again, Chair, yeah. For a 5-year rolling programme, we worked with Into Cultures, who are a multicultural group that work within Warwickshire, Leamington, Stratford. And we always worked with them on an annual show at the Civic Hall, where, because they have inroads directly into the cultural communities, not only within Nuneaton and Bedworth, but with Coventry and beyond. And each year they came up with more and more resistance. We've also worked with Om Gurung on a couple of occasions where we've done Nepalese and Gurkha community celebrations at the Civic Hall. And it is a shame to say, even from the patron survey, you'll see that the majority of our patrons who actually replied to the survey were 40 plus, predominantly female, all car owners who do have disposable income. Our programme, our core programme, because it's being reduced due to financial constraints down to 10 shows a year, we have actually approached Liz and Dev to come and see us again this year, and we have allocated one of those 10 performances in 18-19 to have a cultural festival at the Civic Hall in Bedworth. Now, what we're hoping is that with their contacts within the local community, OM's already contacted me to see if I can do something about these lights on the memorial out here. I had a phone call today, so that's something which I'll be passing on to the appropriate officer. But yes, we are looking at, as one of our 10 performances, to have a major cultural festival at the Civic Hall this year, utilising the skills of Liz and Devinda. And that will include African drumming, Indian dancing. We've also got the commitment of the Chinese dragon from the fire station open day each year. Because I didn't know, but the guy that's actually in the head used to play rugby with me about 15 years ago. So that's also quite helpful. So we are aware of it. There are cultural issues, from what I understand from OM, in terms of some of the community members wishing to be out late at night. So we're looking predominantly at Saturday afternoons and Sunday afternoons, so that it doesn't impinge on their religious beliefs as well. So thank you for bringing that up. And yes, we are looking at putting on a major cultural festival this year at the Civic Hall. We already have the National Brass Band Championships, as Councillor Kandaka has also mentioned, one of the biggest winter folk festivals in the UK as well. So if we can build into that a cultural festival as well, linked in with the Festival of Arts, then hopefully it will be sustainable in years to come. Thank you.
I'm just going to make a comment before she might slip up. On your report, Catherine, I noticed I should have said it earlier. It's maybe a little bit petty. Recommendation. The report on the progress of Nuneaton Museum and Arts Centre. I thought I was in Nuneaton and Bedworth Arts Centre.
Yeah, unfortunately.
It's very touched to my heart.
I know, unfortunately, and before my
No,
time.
we're not going into it, it's gone. I just thought I'd meant John.
Can't have it both ways.
Yes, yours, John. I just thought I'd let you know that there is a Bedworth.
Okay, yes, we do answer the phone with that.
John.
Just a couple of things, perhaps. I'm sorry to hear about the folk festival. I was hoping that might be. It's one of the things that has an effect on the community, because they play in different places with
Exactly.
round to say, you know, that's all. But I noticed in your big page here you said about ticket sales because the Belgrade Theatre run the same performance. I always thought there was a standard practice if there was a professional touring company somewhere and a not reasonable distance that you couldn't actually do the same thing in another place. That. And you're saying also we're restricted through budget concerns, etc., for only 10 shows a year, which is a shame as well, because there must be some downtime, if that's the right word, that the Civic Hall has not been used, but it could possibly be used. I know these may be simple questions, but I'm hoping the answers are going to be simple as well.
Yeah, again, the answer is relatively simple, Councillor Glass. Yeah, on average, we work on a main house event every 1.5 days throughout the calendar year. Between 115 and 125 main house events. We don't include conferences within the programme because they are primarily organised by external organisations. And to develop that market further, we have actually joined a London consortium who actively search for conference venues within the Midlands area, because we are ideally located with the road networks. The agencies do take quite a considerable cut of any income. However, the decision has been taken that we will give it 12 months to see whether or not it is advantageous to the Civic Hall. We have already secured which I believe a lot of you will have already been invited to. There's the Rock Conversation, which is a new one for this year. Domestic in General have 2 annual conferences. We have the Diabetes Conference, and we also have the NHS Trust Regional Conference at the Civic Hall in Bedworth. We also have 3 large school events a year, the Higham Lane prize giving, the Milverton School event, and also this year we should be getting one of the Coventry schools because they've outgrown their own school hall. So they are additional to our main house programmes in terms of private hires. So again, to touch on the point that the councillor made to my left there, we are looking at developing new business. It is difficult within Bedworth because of the socio-economic situation that we find ourselves in, but we do have a lot of support from the local population. CV11 and CV12 postcodes are staunch supporters of the Civic Hall, and what we do try to do is to put on the types of events, promotions and shows that they wish to come, and this does need to be made at an affordable price, because you'll see that our price increases have remained very stable. We don't charge commission on our ticket sales. We are developing, which I'm sure Councillor Condarker will be over the moon with, our internet sales programme. But our internet sales are specific to certain shows. If we look at Al Murray, if we look at Jimmy Carr, if we look at Jim Davidson, shows like Talon, who have a big fan base, as does Navi, a lot of their audience will actually book online. But the Civic Hall has always prided itself on knowledgeable staff within the box office, and if people do ring up and make a general inquiry, our staff can talk with confidence and experience, and they are able to channel those patrons to certain shows. You can always, it's very, very difficult when you have a restricted programme, and I appreciate that we have a restricted programme for whatever reason. We do have to make best value one of our considerations. And yes, we could put large-scale touring shows on and be charging people £35, £40 and £45 a ticket, but unfortunately our demographic and our profile shows us quite clearly that at the moment we do not have that profile to be paying that sort of money, and therefore we tailor our shows to our patrons. And as in certain years when we've taken a risk with a big name artist like Billy Ocean before he did his national tour of America, we also had Lee Mead as part of the 40th anniversary celebrations. We're working alongside the Irish community in Coventry and Birmingham to bring some national and international artists in, and we are growing our patrons base and we are cross-marketing. So I do take on board all the positive comments that we've received around the table this evening, Chair, and I will take those back to the senior management team. We sincerely hope that we won't, in anybody's eyes, be letting anybody down in the coming years at the Civic Hall in Bedworth.
Can I do another question concerning what Tim just done their own and says there? I remember many moons ago there was the Lord Mayor of Coventry was in the Civic Hall, and we were talking about boundary changes, etc. at the time. And I said to him, I said, there's a map of Nuneaton and Bedworth, where would you want the boundary changes to go? And all I did was circle the Civic Hall. He never wanted anything else, all he wanted the Civic Hall, because he could see what a positive venue that is. And saying that, from those times you mentioned conferences, there was one of the arguments was that there wasn't enough hotels within the area. Now since that time those hotels have actually produced itself with A444 and industrial estates, etc. And I know a long time ago also is that the recall, they were in some sort of thing with the NEC because they see that because it's the other end of the motorway sort of thing, and we're even closer. So there was a possibility if there was hotel space, etc., people could use the Civic Hall rather than mess it up. Are we still having any sort of contact? Because I think the Civic Hall is very positive. Like,
Yeah.
as you probably know, every time on Facebook something comes up, I'm always sharing it all over the place, the same as Chris and other people, you know. So
yeah, what we are finding, Councillor Glass, is now that a lot of the artists, especially the touring companies, they are actually increasing the spend per head in the borough because the majority of them stay either at the Travel Lodge or at Western Hall, who do a specific deal for us to promote joint working. With the darts event at the weekend, we had a number of the the patrons and also some of the players staying within. So yeah, we are growing that, and certainly with the developments at Bermuda Park now, it's giving us more of an opportunity to work alongside and get complimentary rates and discounted rates for our bigger shows. So yeah, people are now not just travelling to the Civic Hall for an evening show. We are finding now that some people are staying over on the Friday night, do a bit more shopping, so there's more spend in the local economy. And if we can develop that even more with the weekend events, with the brass bands, with the folk festival, and of course with the Festival of Arts weekend as part of the 70th anniversary, these are all opportunities that we are looking at maximising.
Good, very positive.
Any further comments? Anybody?
Me.
Just you? Right.
Can I just ask members that, and I'm sure it wasn't intentional, Tim, but actually there's quite a lot of people's names in this report that you've provided for us on page 45. So can I just ask that members treat this report as a confidential report? And Mr. Goss, could you leave your report here before you leave? We have amended the report for the website. So.
Yeah, in relation to that, our business development manager did contact all of those people and they were happy for their names to appear in the report. Because they're all Facebook and or Twitter, so they are in the public domain anyway. We haven't put anybody's details in there that didn't.
That's okay then.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else for comments or anything? Okay, thank you, Tim, for your report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.
I will take those points on board, Chris. Thank you.
The next one is the cleanliness of Bedworth swimming baths. Leisure and Recreation Contract Monitoring Officer. Which we do.
We don't have, Chair. Dermot Baines had put his apologies in, I'm afraid, for this meeting, and his manager, Glenn
Thank you.
Hooper, was going to come and answer any questions. Unfortunately, due to personal situation that's occurred this afternoon, Glenn now can't come either, so we have nobody here to give this report, Chair.
Thanks, Tim.
But I am quite prepared to take any questions back to the officer if the panel has any.
Unfortunately, this afternoon is at George Elliott with his mum over there. He's have to go and they've sent for him.
Yeah.
So that's obviously the reason he's got to go to that. He had to go to the hospital. His mum was taken in. So we can understand that. I've made comment about the previous officer, knowing that the meeting's been on the agenda on our timetable for a long time. And diaries should have been made accordingly, but he did send somebody else, unfortunately. His mum's been rushed into hospital. So if there's anything in there you've read or seen, please, if you want to ask further questions, we can take them back and get them answered for you.
And
I think they've taken a lot of,
Please.
I think they have. I mean, we're going to report now where before that people complain about the baths and the floors and everything a long time and going in, the ladies weren't going to shower and everything. But what has happened now, obviously, they are involved. As you can see, every day they're in the room. It's like and we've now got a full report, and they've listened, and they're doing the job that we wanted them to do. So if anybody's in the bus and they're not doing that, please don't hesitate. I'm sure you will anyway. But at least it's got them alive and got them in there cleaning and making sure Bedworth baths are usable in a proper manner. So all I can say is if you've read the report and there's no comments, other than that, we will keep on top of it. There's no question about that. And we will make sure. I'm sure he hasn't left a message on this evening, and if we have any questions at it, please tell us and we'll just give it to him and he will answer it for us. Yes, Chris?
Yeah, just reading the report, it looks like they have took all the comments on and they've acted on every point. There's one thing still outstanding to complete in January, so that's probably completed anyway. So I think the VACT, I think scrutiny again has done its job. So
Yes, I think we've had a massive impact on that one. So that's got to be good. So thank you for all being involved in it, really. So that's that one then before to now work the plan forward plan.
Yeah, just to advise you, Chair, and I don't know if you know, but the forward plan in here is the one that's just for January now. Cabinet was last night,
Yes.
and an urgent item went to Cabinet that was required, that your approval was required for. But because you weren't here, in regard to the Constitution, I understand that the Mayor gave his permission for that item to go. And that is, it was the item on gas servicing and the maintenance contract that was from housing. So,
How is it that I'm with the people in the cabinet and nobody mentioned a word to me?
well, I'm just telling
Yeah.
you because
No,
I think the
okay,
panel
the
needs
Mayor-
to know that that
no.
was what the situation was. If you,
Oh, well.
the only thing that I can see there at the moment that's really of interest perhaps to this panel is the development and acquisition strategy, which is something that was referred to earlier, which was in regard to affordable homes and so on. So I just draw that to your attention. Other than that, Chair, I'll happily take any comments.
Any comments? Yes, Chris?
just on the housing policy review, I just think we need to keep an eye on that because that is an important one.
You're on the work programme now, Chris, we're still
Oh,
on
we're
the
still
forward
on.
plan.
Oh, right,
Trying to
okay.
get out the door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Chair, we're going to add development and acquisition strategy, are we, to our...
It's up to you. I'm just
It
saying that
seems
is
reasonable,
something
Chair.
that's
It's okay.
there to...
No, just add it on then.
Yeah.
We'll add it on, yes, please don't, we'll add it on. Yes. Other than that, we agree then the forward plan, okay?
Yeah.
So thank you, and
And the work programme,
the
Chair,
work programme, tell us.
after today's meetings that you've had, I would suggest that the next meeting, which is the 22nd of March, you will have the Mascot Strategic Assessment, the performance report and the Community Safety Partnership report, and then you'll have completed your work programme.
Good.
Okay, everybody happy with that?
Yeah.
Anything else to suggest while we've, okay, final programme? Anyway, thank you very much for your attending and excellent meeting and for your standing in for us. Matt, and thanks for coming. I'll now declare the meeting closed. Thank you. Safe journey home.
Thank you for